Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Lady Qi'ra's Galactic Adventure, where we traverse the universe in our Correlian Corvette Cruiser, the Vindicator. This time, we are continuing our exploration of the interior, as we travel to the planet Alderaan and discuss yet another atrocity committed by the Galactic Empire. Love that for us. Join us as we talk of the complexities of the House of Organa, Alderaan's blatant refusal to support the patriarchy, hashtag Mommy Breha Organa, and, the power of pure hope in the times of grief. This week on Lady Qi'ra's Galactic Adventure. Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Lady Qi'ra's Galactic Adventure, where we traverse the universe in our Correlian Corvette Cruiser, the Vindicator. I am, of course, your host on this excursion, Admiral Qi'ra Vundari of the Alliance to Restore the Republic. This time, we are continuing our exploration of the interior as we travel to the planet Alderaan. It's about to get real. If you have no questions, comments, or concerns, then make sure to remember that rebellions are built on hope, that most men can be described as, quote, stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herders, and not in a good way, and that Jimmy Smits and his cheekbones died for the Republic's sins this week on Lady Qi'ra's Galactic Adventure. If you know anything about Star Wars, you know that Alderaan is vital to the Star Wars story. And in a weird way, everything kind of starts and ends here, and not in the same way as Tatooine, right? It starts here in Episode 4. It's chronologically in Episode 1 in Mention, but the memory of this place will remain until the death of Princess Leia in the sequel trilogy. On that note, you can probably guess that this planet's going to have some dense coverage, so we're only going to be covering the canon today. If you really want a Legends Alderaan episode, feel free to let me know via private message, DM, I don't care. Maybe I'll start a Twitter. Twitter's ending though. I'm really debating it. But make sure you fasten your seatbelts because it's time to take off. Located in the Alderaan sector, Alderaan system, Alderaan once stood at M10 in the galactic grid. So you know what that means. It's system time, baby.
It's system time.
The Alderaan system rotates around one sun with no name besides, quote, Alderaan's sun. I'm not getting into the naming debate again. But Alderaan's actually the only planet we know to be in the system, but there happens to be more information on it, after the destruction of the planet. But I want to tell its story in chronological order, so we're going to hold off on that for now and move on to the main attraction. So gather your tissues. Alderaan was a terrestrial planet with no moons, a rotation period of 18 standard hours, and an orbital period of 364 standard days, with a Type 1 breathable atmosphere and standard gravity. Pretty basic. It was home to much flora and fauna, so let's get into some of it now. First, we have the candlewick flowers, climbing plants that bloomed in the spring, revealing their orangey golden flowers at night, and were much favoured by Princess Leia. Her mother, Queen Breha Organa, had a mechanical enhancement in her chest that glowed a similar colour to its petals, so young Leia associated these flowers with her mother's love. I know. It's heartbreaking. Next, we have the Qi'ra tree, sun-sensitive trees that smelled of spice and fire. Seedlings from this tree would survive the destruction of Alderaan, taking residence on Coruscant and Kotonica. Now we have Crinwood, and from what tree it comes from, I do not know. I do know, however, that it's nearly priceless, especially now, and is only used in the interiors of the most luxurious star cruisers. Then we have star blossoms, a type of fruit to which I don't know how they taste, but there's also star flowers, and flowers usually leads to fruit, so I don't know if they're interconnected. I have no reference, but the flowers, they're tiny and blue, and they've been growing on the royal lawns of Alderaan ever since the High Republic. Flora out of the way, let's move on to fauna. Firstly, we have the Alderaanian wolf cat, feral creatures that are known to rip people to shreds. Anyways, next is the manka cat, feline predators that live in packs in the mountains and grasslands, mainly on Alderaan. I'm not sure if they're on any other planets though. Manka cats were also distinguishable by the thick manes of fur around their necks and the two sets of menacing, forward-jutting tusks in their lower jaws. The babies are so cute. Look up a picture. Maybe I'll put one in right here or something. Maybe. I'm thinking about it. Next we have nerfs. Nerfs, you know? Nerf for nothing. Which are furry, non-sentient animals raised for their milk, meat, and hide that were farmed on Alderaan and continued to be farmed on planets like Arcanis, Ibar, Jaresh, and Lothal. And yes, this is where the nerf herder thing comes from. Thank you, Leia. I'm pretty sure they're also cultivated on Edu from the Rogue One episode. I'm going to be calling back to that a lot. Get used to it. They are most well known for their pungent body odor, by the way, which I imagine smells like Axe body spray, aka the worst smell. There will be no disagreeing. There will just be reputation. I'm sorry. But yeah, the smell, their coarse fur, and four curved horns, and a Jar Jar Binks style tongue that, however, does not fruit roll-upify when it goes back into their mouths. Moving on, we have the snow owl. They reside in knotholes of trees and could endure the cold winters on Alderaan's Apenza Peaks. We'll talk more about them later. The peaks, not the owls. Actually, we're done with the owls. We then have the Thranta, a large flying species of birds that somehow managed to survive the immolation of their homeworld and ended up in Bespin? On the other side of the galaxy. In the Outer Rim. Don't ask me, I'm just the messenger, okay? Anyways, let's get back to Alderaan. But now that I'm thinking about it, are they like secretly Purgil, or are they like they're friends with the Purgil? Oh god. From space, Alderaan looks very earthly, for lack of a better word. The planet is blue and green with wispy white clouds. Alderaan is covered in vast oceans, plains, and snow-capped mountains, and was regarded as one of the most beautiful places in the entire galaxy. And not just for physicality's sake, like the planet is gorgeous, yes, but so are the things that are made here. Alderaan was known for its art market, its luxury goods, like the priceless what I mentioned before, and its fine wines. That art market thing is brought up a lot in Princess and the Scoundrel, as for, you know, their honeymoon, they decide to take a cruise, and they go to this, read the book. Just read the book. Read the book! Listen to the audiobook. I don't care. It's good. But, while we're here, let's talk about the Alderaani people. Alderaanis are humans, mainly, known for their pacifism, and before the events of the Skywalker saga, they possessed little to no weaponry at all. Few petty blasters, but no ion cannons of any kind. The planet was ruled by the House of Organa, which has been in power for thousands of years, maybe even back to, the creation of the Republic itself. We don't really know, though. They heavily favoured education, the Alderaani, and learning, so much so that schooling was free for all people, and Queen Rhea herself was the Minister of Education. There's also a cultural significance in braids in this culture, especially so for royalty, which Leia upholds to a T. After the destruction of Alderaan, you see her transition from her rolled, coiled space buns to the crown braids she will stay in for most of the series, which are much like her mother's, right? And she keeps them into her old age, further cementing not just her status as the princess of Alderaan, but the immense determination of the Alderaani people, even with their home planet literally destroyed. Fun fact, all Alderaani children owned a keepsake box carved by their parents and grandparents. The child would place items in it that they had outgrown, and over time would look back to see how much they have. Traditionally, the owners of this box would give it away upon their coming of age. Pretty sweet. Cities on Alderaan, much like the cities on Chandrila, were designed to specifically reflect the beauty of the planet, like the palace of the royal family, which was built in such a way that it almost blended into the mountains behind them. And to do this, it was built out of white synth stone and transparent steel. Pretty cool. With the physical descriptions out of the way, it's time to move on to the history of the planet, which leaves us with our last bit of funny for this episode with my stupid little theme song. If you don't have the tissues already, I recommend you get them now. was among the founding members of the Galactic Republic over 25,000 years ago. It is unknown exactly when monarchy on Alderaan began, but as soon as it did, they enlisted the aid of 3 trials to determine the rightful heir. The challenge of the heart, the challenge of the mind, and the challenge of the body. These challenges would be done on the Day of Demand, held on the 16th anniversary of the individual's name day, their birthday. The challenge of the heart could vary from person to person, but traditionally the heir was expected to perform charity or relief work, paid for out of their own allowance. For example, Leia Organa, on her challenge of the heart, went on a mission delivering relief supplies to various suffering populations, those specifically suffering from the Empire, and her first mission was to the planet Wobani, which may sound familiar to you if you've listened to my Rogue One episode or you've seen the movie, in which she wound up evacuating, I just couldn't say that word, over 100 civilians under the pretense of hiring them as additional crew for the Tantive 4, but she was actually undermining her father's plan to negotiate evacuation of the civilian population there. It's a whole situation. We actually discussed it in the Rogue One episode when we covered Wobani originally. Maybe we'll have to cover it again when we get closer to the Outer Rim. We'll see. For the challenge of the mind, the tested heir had their intelligence tested. For example, when her challenge began, Leia Organa served as her father's Senate aide and represented Alderaan in the apprentice legislation. Now finally, we have the challenge of the body, where traditionally, the heir climbed the Apenza Peaks, a famous mountain visible from the capital of Alderaan, alone, although they could choose to bring along a companion. When Breha Organa was undergoing her challenge, she actually suffered a fatal fall from this mountain, which is why she had the cybernetic enhancements I mentioned before. When Princess Leia Organa underwent her trials, she asked her mother to come with her, probably to rectify the situation. But, it was bad. The only reason she lived is because she was being followed by Alderaani guard. And she was made queen. Well, no, she was made princess the next day. Shut up, brain. By the time of the High Republic, Alderaan was incredibly prosperous. They were also a member of the Republic Defense Coalition, meaning that they were required to provide ships and soldiers in times of crisis to the Republic. It is because of this that Alderaan was required to give troops to the aid in the Great Hyperspace Disaster of 232, and the reason I am mentioning it right now is because you need to hold me accountable so we can cover it sometime, because it sounds metal. Anyways, Queen Breha Organa took the throne of Alderaan sometime between 40 and 28 BBY, date unknown, replacing her mother, whose name we don't know. Did you know that Bail is a very common name on Alderaan, apparently? Because there's another Bail who also worked in the Senate, Bail Antilles. I don't know if he's related to Wedge, maybe? His cool uncle, maybe? I don't know. But Bail Antilles was nominated for the Supreme Chancellor after the vote of no confidence that Padme Amidala brought about against Chancellor Valorum in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. But, obviously, Mr. Bail Antilles lost the position to Daddy Pubs, but it was worth a shot, I guess. Moving on to the Clone Wars era, Alderaan was now represented by the other and better Bail, Bail Prester Organa, and his magnificent cheekbones. Bail is the prince consort and husband of Queen Breha Organa. If you don't know, but that's kind of common Star Wars knowledge. The two of them are kind of significant to the story. Just a little bit. Though, through Bail Organa, Alderaan allied themselves with Chancellor Palpatine's Loyalist Committee, trying to maintain stability of the Republic as the Separatist movement came into power. Organa was in firm opposition to the Military Creation Act, alongside fellow senators Padme Amidala and Mon Mothma. Bail would continue to be a military leader for his planet during the impending Clone Wars, a war which was thoroughly against the morality of the Alderaani people, by the way, as they are legitimately pacifists. Palpatine's web is so intricate. Let's not talk about that. Towards the end of the war, as everyone listening and or watching this probably knows, Bail and Breha Organa adopted a young baby on Empire Day. A baby you may know as Leia Organa, daughter of Padme Amidala and Anakin Skywalker. On to the Empire times. Leia Organa's Day of Demand happened in 3 BBY, meaning that, I think most people generally know this, but in case you didn't, she's 19 in Episode 4, A New Hope. Alderaan's Senator, Bail Organa, along with Chandrilan's Senator Mon Mothma, also alongside a few rare Jedi that may or may not have been Ahsoka Tano, formed the Alliance to restore the Republic. In secret, of course. Alderaan became a source of munitions and spacecraft for the rebellion, as Chandrila became its monetary center and safe house. Bail Organa was known to strike deals with ship companies, shipbuilders, to, secretly acquire more X-Wings for the rebellion. I think we've talked about that before, but I don't remember in what episode. Let's not try and figure it out. Leia Organa, during this time, is now a representative in the Imperial Senate, and began using her diplomatic immunity to undergo rebel missions. We've seen this happen in Rebels. It was very funny. If you haven't seen the episode of Star Wars Rebels with Leia in it, you should definitely go watch it. It makes me think that Leia and Ezra would have been very good friends had Ezra not, slayed. Maybe they'll meet again. They might meet again. Hey, they might. But I'm just thinking Ezra and Luke Skywalker in the same building might be too much chaos magic for the rest of us. Just a bit. Especially if Seb's in the room with them. That might be a problem. Anyways, both Chandrila and Alderaan would become safe worlds for the rebellion by the time of the Rebel Alliance set up shop on Yavin 4. But right now it's time for the end of the show and of Alderaan. Shortly after the Battle of Scarif, and I mean literally hours after the Battle of Scarif, which you can hear all about in the Rogue One episode once again. Bail Organa returns to Alderaan and tells his people that basically the war's about to begin because the Death Star 100% exists, and now the rebellion knows about it, and the Empire is literally going to disinvoke the Senate. And now the Empire... I cut all this out. Shortly after the Battle of Scarif, and I mean mere hours after, as you can hear in the Rogue One episode, once again, Bail Organa returns to Alderaan to tell his people that basically the war's about to begin because the Death Star 100% exists, and now the rebellion knows, and the Empire is literally about to disband the entirety of the Imperial Senate to hide this information from the general public. Princess Organa was aboard the Tentive 4 when the plans were extracted from the Scarif data vault and was planning on taking those plans to her parents on Alderaan when she was captured by Darth Vader's boarding party in the beginning of Episode 4 A New Hope. I think we all know this. While aboard the Death Star, Leia is brought before Vader and Grand Moff Tarkin, the latter of whom asks her for a location of a rebel base, to which, because she's not an idiot, she replies, Dantooine, which is the base that they have left. Tarkin knows she's lying, and does the only logical thing he could think of, which is different for a high-functioning psychopath than most normal humans, and decides to, to blow up Alderaan. Because Dantooine's too far away. Tarkin is such a Karen. Jesus. So, he orders the destruction of Leia's homeworld and makes her watch. Wonderful. And it's canon that Bail and Breha literally die in each other's arms, looking up at the Death Star coming into orbit. I'm too depressed for this. Can I just mention how criffed up it is that no one in any of the movies ever shows Leia any sympathy for literally every person she knows burning up into nothingness. Everyone. Literally everyone. All the people she grew up with, her friends, her family. She didn't even know she had other family until the Battle of Endor. Which is literally like 5-6 years from now. But no, she had to be the soft woman and comfort Luke, who was mourning a man he hardly knew, instead of Luke, who we know to be a very solid empath, reaching out and telling her that he was sorry that her entire planet got blown up into pieces and that her parents and her cousins that she didn't even like and all of her future subjects are dead. Because in a real world, we know he would have done that. Because he's Luke Skywalker. He's the best. Right? And, like, even though they didn't know they were siblings, they did have a Force connection. Like, they could sense each other. They just didn't know what it was. Which is why they had to be kept apart in the first place. But what do I know in comparison to God King Lucas and his neck pouch creature that may or may not be a Kowakian monkey lizard? I think I have to have one political debate each episode now. Gods. Alright. Moving on. The Coruscanti Alderaan population began to hold candlelight vigils for what they began to refer to as the disaster. Through rumours and gossip, el chisme, they would eventually learn of what actually happened. And you can guess that they weren't very happy, but these vigils were held on level 3204 of Coruscant, and they quickly turned into riots as more and more stormtroopers ended up down there and started firing into the crowds. They're holding a funeral, basically, for every single person that died on Alderaan. There were 2 billion people on Alderaan when it was exploded. 2 billion. 2 billion people are dead. And stormtroopers start firing into the crowds. This sounds an awful lot like things we've watched happen in America. Anyways, after the destruction of the Death Star, Vader wished to finish his immolation of Alderaan by genociding the rest of the population, you know, as he does. Leia, of course, wouldn't allow this to happen and actually frees the people that he was going to kill. Side note, just for reference, Leia and Han get married in 4 ABY on the forest moon of Endor. And if you haven't read Princess and the Scoundrel, the wedding scene made me sob. So I highly recommend it. It's beautifully written. Beth Revis does an amazing job of explaining Leia's into in a dialogue at this point. Like, there's a sword called the Riadon sword that would be strapped to her side by her mother, right? And we also know that Leia could have potentially been queer. It doesn't really matter. But, like, her mother would strap the sword around her waist traditionally, and even though the sword no longer exists, neither do her parents, like, she felt like their ghosts were doing it for her. It's just so sweet. You need to read it. Listen to the audiobook. I don't care. It made me cry like a baby. But there is one more thing that we need to talk about. The actual remnants of the planet. Some of the actual pieces of Alderaan, like chunks of rock, were taken by Vader to stroke his ego, I guess. But the rest of them stayed. And basically created this artificial asteroid field, which became known as the Graveyard, or the Alderaanian Graveyard, or the Graveyard of Alderaan. But they put an Imperial blockade over the Graveyard until the Battle of Endor. But I feel like it would be very virulent to drive through, drive through, same thing. I mean, Han had pulled up literally right after they destroyed the place, but, like, I don't feel like it would have gotten any better because it's space. Anyways, I don't even want to know what this did to the gravitational pull of the system. Like, the gravity of a star system is determined by everything in the star system, right? In comparison to the sun, like, they're all orbiting around the sun, pulling from the sun. And say, like, we took the Milky Way galaxy, or in our solar system, in it, and let's say, like, Venus, like, disappears. What would happen to us? There's probably not going to be any astrophysicists listening to this episode, but if there are, please let me know. I am morbidly interested. But on the note of complicated love and chaotic physics, I think we're done here. And that is everything I have for you on Alderaan in canon. I hope you enjoyed your journey this week and your stay so far aboard the Vindicator. If you have any questions or concerns about your stay, feel free to bring it up with one of our personnel on board via a private message or a DM, perhaps on our TikTok accounts at Collective Rules, or at Unidentified Robot, or maybe on Instagram at Lady Qi'ra, or perhaps in the review of our show, or perhaps, if you want more of me, I don't know why you would, but you can head on over to patreon.com/Lady Qi'ra Productions, and for only $5 a month, you can have access to tons of additional content in our exclusive Discord community. All of those usernames and their respective platforms will be listed in the show notes. Next time, we will be journeying to Fadale, a bit of a cool world I can cover in an hour or less. Preferably half an hour or less. Until next time, my friends, companions, and droids, may the Force be with you all.